The city of New York is no stranger to the grand spectacles of celebrity culture, but there are certain moments that completely redefine what it means to capture the attention of the global public. Under the heavy, sweltering summer heat of a bustling Manhattan afternoon, an air of profound mystery began to settle over one of the most prestigious luxury establishments in the entire metropolis. Outside the grand facade of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, the usual symphony of yellow cabs, rushing pedestrians, and eager onlookers felt charged with an unusual, almost palpable static electricity. For days, whispers had been circulating through the concrete canyons of the city, hinting that something monumental was unfolding behind closed doors, yet the true scope of the operation remained carefully guarded by an elite apparatus of security. It was a classic game of misdirection played on a grand stage, where every movement was calculated to distract, and every exit was monitored by an army of lenses trying to catch a fleeting glimpse of the world's most talked-about couple. As a fleet of high-end buses began lining up along the front entrance to transport a gathering of meticulously dressed guests, the attention of the gathering crowds was naturally drawn to the main foyer. It was the perfect diversion, a masterclass in public relations that kept the cameras pointed in one direction, while the true action unfolded in the deep shadows of the service alleyways, away from the bright lights and the main entrance. Hidden from the casual observer, a heavily tinted luxury sports utility vehicle sat idling with its engine purring softly against the pavement. The windows were completely blacked out, reflecting the brick walls of the service entrance like a dark mirror, ensuring that whoever was sitting inside remained entirely invisible to the outside world. Suddenly, the service door swung open, and a tall, athletic figure emerged with a calculated quickness, slipping into the back seat of the waiting vehicle before anyone could call out a name or snap a clear photograph. For a brief fleeting moment, a sharp eye might have caught a glimpse of a silhouette that bore an uncanny resemblance to Travis Kelce, the towering star of the Kansas City Chiefs. Inside the dark cabin of the vehicle, as if reacting to the intense pressure of a long-awaited climax, the mysterious figure took a swift, definitive swig from a metallic hip flask before the driver accelerated away into the chaotic New York traffic. The vehicle immediately fell into formation behind an even larger car with similarly darkened glass, a transport that insiders believed carried the closest relatives and inner circle of the couple. Hotel workers who witnessed the silent departure laughed nervously when pressed for answers, refusing to confirm or deny whether the man in the shadows was indeed the groom of the century. They seemed visibly weary from the sheer exhaustion of maintaining such an ironclad operation, an assignment that had turned a celebration of romance into an exercise in absolute corporate secrecy. Before we dive deeper into the astonishing lengths this couple went to hide their monumental day from the world, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an exclusive update on this unfolding story. The level of absolute control exerted over the weekend was unprecedented, even for a pop icon who has spent her entire adult life navigating the intense scrutiny of international fame. Reports quickly began to filter out through internal channels that several hotel and venue staff members had already lost their livelihoods for simply using their personal mobile devices within the restricted zones. The message from the organizers was clear, uncompromising, and delivered with an iron fist, leaving no room for human error or casual curiosity among the workforce. If that thirsty passenger in the back of the white-glove transport was indeed Travis Kelce, it represented just a single piece of a massive, intricate puzzle of cloak-and-dagger tactics. For months, the American media had been locked in a fierce, exhausting cat-and-mouse game with the couple, chasing rumors across continents, tracking private aviation schedules, and analyzing every lyric and public appearance for clues. Yet, despite the collective might of investigative journalism and paparazzi networks, the public was left entirely in the dark until a sudden, earth-shattering announcement dropped on Friday evening. The simple, definitive statement sent shockwaves through social platforms and newsrooms alike, confirming that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce were officially married. Amidst the immediate frenzy of validation, the first concrete detail of the secret ceremony emerged to tantalize fashion enthusiasts around the world, revealing that the bride had walked down the aisle wearing a stunning creation by Dior. The journey to this historic Friday evening had been a masterclass in strategic planning, a logistical triumph that began months before the first guest even arrived in New York City. Back in the early spring, long before the summer heat had settled over Manhattan, select specialized legal and event management teams were already operating in total secrecy. It was later revealed that highly restrictive non-disclosure agreements had been quietly dispatched alongside the initial save-the-date notifications to a massive guest list exceeding 1,000 individuals. This was not a mere formality, as every single recipient, regardless of their status, wealth, or relationship to the couple, was required to execute the legal document before receiving any further details. The actual wedding invitations themselves were marvels of anti-piracy engineering, designed to completely eliminate the possibility of an anonymous leak to tabloid newspapers or social media accounts. Each individual card was custom printed with a unique, nearly invisible digital watermark that repeated the guest's full legal name across the intricate patterns of the physical paper. This meant that if a single photograph of an invitation was shared online or leaked to a journalist, the system would instantly trace the source of the breach back to the specific individual responsible. The extreme measures created an environment of absolute compliance, ensuring that the grandest romantic celebration of the decade remained a ghost in the media landscape until the couple decided it was time to speak. The sheer scale of the security apparatus implemented for this historic celebration extended far beyond the guest list, creating a perimeter of absolute silence that even enveloped the couple's closest family members. Multiple highly placed sources eventually confirmed that the pop icon and her star athlete partner had operating protocols that kept their own relatives on a strict need-to-know basis. This meant that even the mothers of the bride and groom, Andrea Swift and Donna Kelce, who have been fixtures by their children's sides throughout their highly publicized public journeys, were intentionally left completely in the dark regarding the final wedding preparations. The strategy was not born out of a lack of trust, but rather from a sophisticated understanding of how the modern media machine operates, where even an innocent comment or a slip of the tongue to an acquaintance could spark an international media frenzy. By keeping the inner circle completely insulated from the logistical timeline, the organizers managed to prevent the kind of organic leaks that usually derail high-profile celebrity events before they even begin. When the festivities finally commenced in the heart of New York City, the on-site security forces took their operational control to an entirely new level, enforcing rules that felt more akin to a secure government installation than a traditional wedding reception. As guests began arriving at the massive Madison Square Garden complex, which had been transformed under total secrecy into a romantic sanctuary, they were met by security teams executing a flawless, uncompromising screening process. Every single individual entering the venue was required to immediately forfeit their personal mobile devices, effectively severing their connection to the outside world for the duration of the evening. To replace their digital lifelines, each attendee was issued a specialized high-tech wristband that was paired directly with their identity through a quick digital photograph taken at the checkpoint. These wristbands were embedded with advanced radio frequency identification chips, allowing the Central Security Command Center to track the physical movement of every single person within the vast building in real time. If a guest wandered into a restricted area or attempted to bypass a security barrier, the tracking system would instantly alert the monitoring staff, ensuring absolute containment of the event. To facilitate basic movement and entry, arriving dignitaries and friends were provided with temporary, individual quick response codes that served as their digital passports before their primary communication devices were locked away in secure vaults. The atmosphere was a surreal blend of high society elegance and futuristic surveillance, where the price of admission to the most exclusive party on earth was the total surrender of one's personal privacy. The uncompromising nature of these security protocols did not bend for anyone, as even the local municipal law enforcement officers assigned to the event found themselves subject to the exact same rigorous restrictions. More than 130 officers of the New York City Police Department had been deployed to handle crowd control, manage traffic flow, and secure the exterior perimeter of the venue under the heavy summer heat. Yet, before they could take up their positions around the complex, every single officer was explicitly instructed that personal cellular phones were strictly prohibited on the premises. This unprecedented move highlighted the absolute determination of the wedding planners to eliminate any potential vulnerability, recognizing that even an official uniform was no guarantee against the temptation of capturing a historic, multi-million-dollar photograph. The reality of these intense, highly restrictive instructions was inadvertently glimpsed by onlookers when an arriving guest struggled at the exterior checkpoint, desperately showing her phone screen to a guard to prove her credentials. The message on her display, which was captured by a distant lens, outlined explicit instructions for emergency communication during the event, stating that dedicated analog landline phones would be available inside the venue if an absolute crisis arose. The text explicitly commanded guests to memorize or write down any vital phone numbers they might require beforehand, illustrating that the digital blackout was total and absolute, while the city outside speculated wildly. The bride herself executed a brilliant vanishing act, completely retreating from the public eye during the critical week leading up to the ceremony. It was an uncharacteristic move for a global superstar who is typically seen navigating the streets of Manhattan surrounded by her dedicated security detail and adoring fans. Instead, a constant, dizzying cavalcade of luxury vehicles with heavily tinted windows shuttled continuously in and out of her private Manhattan townhouse, creating a dizzying shell game that kept the paparazzi permanently off balance. Nobody could say for certain which vehicle carried the singer, or if she was even inside the property at all, as the blacked-out glass effectively shielded her movements from the lenses stationed across the street. This elaborate game of bait and switch reached its peak of theatricality when a member of her personal protection team was spotted openly carrying a large garment bag bearing the prominent label of Stella McCartney outside her apartment. The high-profile display immediately sent fashion commentators into a frenzy of speculation, with media outlets confidently predicting that the legendary British designer had been chosen to create the wedding dress of the century. It was a masterfully executed decoy that completely distracted the public from the truth, ensuring that the actual designer remained a closely guarded secret until the definitive announcement was made. The true identity of the creative mind behind the historic bridal gown was finally revealed to be Jonathan Anderson, the acclaimed creative director who had recently taken the helm at the legendary French fashion house of Dior. The breathtaking creation marked his very first couture wedding gown for the iconic brand, representing a historic milestone for both the designer and the revered fashion institution. What made the choice so fascinating to industry insiders was that Dior had been completely absent from the intense rumors that had circulated for weeks, which had instead focused on traditional names like Ralph Lauren and Oscar de la Renta. By working in total secrecy with Anderson, the bride managed to orchestrate a stunning fashion coup that caught the entire world by surprise, cementing the narrative of an event defined by total creative control. To pull off a deception of this magnitude, Travis Kelce may well have taken direct inspiration from his legendary head coach Andy Reid, who is famous across the sports world for designing complex trick plays on the football field during the most critical moments of the championship season. In the ultimate moments of the Chiefs' recent thrilling Super Bowl victory against the San Francisco 49ers, Kelce had famously served as the ultimate decoy on the championship-winning touchdown drive. He deliberately ran a route designed to draw the attention of the final remaining defenders, sacrifice his own chance at the spotlight to allow his teammate to run completely free into the end zone. That dramatic tactical maneuver on the field of play had earned Kelce his third championship ring, solidifying his status as a sports icon while his future bride watched anxiously from the luxury suites high above the stadium in Las Vegas. When the couple finally embraced on the grass amidst the falling confetti after the historic victory, she was overheard telling him that the elaborate trick play was quite literally the craziest thing she had ever witnessed in her life. It is highly poetic, then, that as the couple approached the most significant personal milestone of their lives, they employed that exact same philosophy of misdirection to navigate the chaotic landscape of global media. Among the elite group of guests who managed to successfully navigate the intense security apparatus at Madison Square Garden was George Kittle, the star tight end who had actually been on the losing side of that historic Super Bowl matchup. His presence among the exclusive gathering demonstrated the deep, complex bonds of brotherhood that exist within the professional football community, bridging intense athletic rivalries for a night of pure celebration. Yet, while the guest list was filled with massive names from the worlds of sports and entertainment, the traditional structure of a celebrity wedding party was completely discarded in favor of something far more intimate. Rumors had spread wildly that a massive coterie of international supermodels and pop stars would serve as bridesmaids, but the reality proved to be a beautiful testament to lifelong loyalty. Rather than surrounding themselves with a massive entourage of global icons, fashion models, and highly publicized childhood acquaintances, The couple chose an incredibly intimate path that surprised even their closest associates. Breaking entirely with the traditional expectations of a high-profile celebrity wedding, neither the bride nor the groom utilized a large line of bridesmaids or groomsmen to accompany them to the altar. Instead, the singer chose her devoted brother Austin to stand by her side as her singular man of honor, reinforcing the deep, unbreakable family ties that have anchored her throughout her meteoric rise to global fame. On the other side of the altar, the legendary football star relied on his brother Jason Kelce to fulfill the duties of best man, a poetic continuation of a lifelong sibling bond that has played out in the public eye across professional sports arenas for over a decade. But the absolute highlight that truly caught the gathered guests completely off guard was the unexpected identity of the individual standing between the couple to guide them through their vows. In a brilliant creative choice that absolutely no one in the media landscape saw coming, the solemn and historic ceremony was officially officiated by their close mutual friend, the iconic Hollywood comedian Adam Sandler. His presence at the altar added a beautiful layer of warmth, humor, and authentic humanity to an occasion that had otherwise been defined by rigid logistics and high-tech security operations. This extraordinary culmination of their romance stands as a historic milestone for a love story that began exactly 3 years ago during a warm summer week that forever altered the landscape of popular culture. The genesis of their relationship traces back directly to the evening of July 8, 2023. When the towering football star first laid eyes on the global songstress during her massive concert tour stop in Kansas City. Driven by a bold and romantic impulse, the athlete had arrived at the stadium determined to meet the singer personally, carrying a custom-made friendship bracelet that cleverly featured his personal phone number woven into the beads. However, the strict behind-the-scenes security protocols of the massive stadium tour prevented him from accessing her dressing room, leaving his initial romantic gesture completely unfulfilled that evening. Undeterred by the near miss, the charismatic tight end recounted the entire humorous and disappointing experience during a subsequent episode of his highly popular weekly podcast, which he co-hosts with his brother. The candid, lighthearted story quickly went viral across social platforms, spreading like wildfire until it eventually caught the direct attention of the superstar singer herself, who found herself deeply moved by the sheer charm and public vulnerability of the gesture. The 14-time Grammy Award winner later confessed to close friends and journalists that the bold public play had touched something deep within her creative soul, describing the sensation as something pulled straight out of a classic Hollywood romance. She colorfully remarked that the gesture made her feel like a character in a classic 80s film, imagining the athletic star standing directly outside her bedroom window with a massive boombox blaring, shouting his affection for the entire world to hear. The singer realized that if this professional athlete was not completely out of his mind, then his grand, unapologetic gesture was quite literally the living embodiment of every romantic song she had ever composed since her teenage years. Shortly after the podcast aired, the two figures finally arranged to meet in person away from the prying eyes of the public, and they found themselves almost instantly and completely enamored with one another. Their whirlwind courtship quickly became the defining cultural narrative of the nation, bridging the massive worlds of professional sports and international pop music in a way that had never been witnessed before. The couple officially solidified their long-term commitment to one another in August of 2025, when they announced their engagement to a delighted global audience, setting off a year of intense planning that culminated in the spectacular events of this weekend, as the final echoes of the historic celebration begin to fade from the corridors of Madison Square Garden. The true cultural significance of this monumental union is only just beginning to be fully understood by industry commentators. This was far more than a simple gathering of two incredibly wealthy and famous individuals. It represented the ultimate convergence of two distinct powerhouse American subcultures that rarely intersect with such profound emotional depth. By successfully executing an event of this massive scale under a shroud of absolute impenetrable secrecy, the couple proved that it is still possible to preserve a sacred personal moment even in an era of total digital transparency. The elaborate game of misdirection, high-tech tracking wristbands, and decoy fashion choices will undoubtedly serve as the definitive blueprint for high-profile public figures seeking to reclaim their privacy during major life milestones. Representatives for the sports icon have been contacted continuously for additional commentary regarding the secret details of the weekend. Though the camp has understandably maintained its characteristic wall of silence as the newlyweds begin their private journey together. For a nation that has watched their every move with bated breath, the quiet confirmation of their marriage brings a beautiful sense of closure to a modern fairy tale that captured the imagination of millions.